It's the end of the week here on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. You see it written right below, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. You find it all there at Panther-Lair.com, and of course message boards where Pitt fans are online talking about Pitt sports all day, every day. I mean, talking about everything going on in the world of Pitt sports. Literally all day, every day. I mean, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You check the message board before you go to bed. You wake up in the morning, there'll be new posts, new replies, new threads, new things for you to read. And it's, if you're a Pitt fan, you're looking for a place to talk about Pitt sports or read about Pitt sports, stay up to date on Pitt sports. There's really nowhere better, in my opinion, my humble, completely biased opinion. There's nowhere better than Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And of course, we have right here youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's our video wing or video department where we pump out new and fresh, I'd like to think, engaging, exclusive Pitt video content every day. We have our Morning Pitt videos like we're doing right now. We have our live streams like we do, every Wednesday night at 8:30. We'll also probably get into some post-game basketball live streams at some point coming up in the not too distant future, maybe once we start the new year. So we have a lot of stuff right there at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So while you're here watching this video, do me a solid, click the like button, smash the like button, not with like a hammer or a brick or anything, just push the like button, and then also subscribe as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You'll never miss any of our Pitt video content, no matter what it is. It's a daily Morning Pitt video or a live stream, post-game press conferences, anything that we put on here. You'll never miss any of it if you like and subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And it's the end of the week. It's Friday, and we have a ton of stuff to get to. I feel like we have a lot of things to get to. It's probably not all that many, but it feels like it's a lot because there's been sort of a lot that has happened since yesterday. And I'm gonna start. We've got a key defensive leader pretty much announcing that he's not coming back for next season. We've got a former Whippeal star who's, transferring back to Pitt to play his final few years of college football. We've got the final official visit weekend prior to signing day on tap. But I think we have to start off by talking about volleyball. I really do. Last night, for those of you who stayed up late to watch it, it went till about 12:30 on the East Coast. Pitt played in the Final Four in Omaha, Nebraska against ACC foe Louisville. It was a rubber match after the two teams met once each in the regular season. Pitt won against Louisville in Pittsburgh. Pitt lost to Louisville in Louisville. Now they met on a neutral court as a 1 seed versus a 2 seed for a chance to play for a national championship. And I got to say, okay, I'll say right off the bat, I'm not the world's foremost volleyball expert or authority. I did not watch every match they played this season. I check in every now and then, certainly keep up on things, follow along with what they're doing. We had Dan Fisher on the Morning Pitt a couple weeks ago, near the end of the regular season, before the NCAA tournament started. But I'm not going to sit here and claim like, boy, I've been on the bandwagon from the very start. But you know what? When they're playing in the Final Four, I'm going to watch the match. And I have some idea of what's going on coming into it, know who some of the key players are and some of the matchups against Louisville. But I would say just as from a novice point of view, it really was an epic match last night. I mean, it went to 5 sets, and it really, I think the thing I would say, now Pitt lost. I guess we should say that right off the bat. Pitt lost 3-2 to Louisville. Like I say, went 5 sets. Really kind of got blown out in the 5th set. Maybe ran out of gas a little bit. Look, Louisville's a really, really good team. I think you can tell that. I don't think you have to be a volleyball expert to see that they've got some great players. Whether it's the De Beers girl who was, her serves. How many aces did she have? 5, 6. I lost count somewhere around there. The really tall girl they had in the front who was blocking everything. I mean, they were all over the place. It was. I mean, you could tell. There's really high-level volleyball being played by really high-level athletes on both sides. And Louisville's really, really good. They deserve to be playing for a national championship. I would say certainly that Pitt would deserve to play for a national championship as well, but they lost their match in the Final Four. But I think what stood out to me the most, just watching the match start to finish, is it really felt like Pitt was behind the entire time. It really felt like they were playing catch-up. I mean, from the very start, I think Louisville took a 6-0 lead in the first set, and Pitt was battling back, and they ultimately lost that first set, but they won the second set. And I say it felt like they were behind. In the third set, they actually had a lead, 22-20, and gave up 5 straight points to Louisville to lose the third set. Now they returned the favor in the fourth set when they were down 22-20 and scored 5 straight points, went on a 5-0 run to win that fourth set and force a fifth set. Missed opportunity there in the third set where they really just needed 3 points to close it out and take a 2-1 lead over Louisville. Put Louisville in the, in that position of being from behind, of having a little bit of pressure on. But they weren't able to close it out. They were playing catch up the entire time. And I got to say, that's what stood out to me the most, was just what a gutsy performance by the Panthers. I mean, just what a gutsy performance to even though Louisville really kind of controlled the match, start to finish, it felt like. Pitt never really went away, and they never let Louisville feel like they really had it all wrapped up. Even though Louisville was in control, Pitt still was threatening enough that Louisville had to stay pretty sharp in order to pull that one out. Now you get to the fifth set, it was pretty much a blowout. I don't know if they ran out of gas. I don't know if it just ultimately Louisville's talent just won out. But it was a gutsy performance up until that point. And I think you give a lot of credit to Dan Fisher, give a lot of credit to the players. That whole program, I mean, it's legitimately one of the top programs nationally. And the only thing they're missing is a national championship. They won the ACC. They've made Final Fours. They just need to get over that one next hump. And at this point, I'm not betting against Dan Fisher. No one should be betting against Dan Fisher. I think he's got that program exactly where you want all of your athletic programs to be, and that's competing at the highest level, consistently getting to the highest level, and having those expectations and meeting those expectations. And so, tip of the cap to the Pitt volleyball team. I'm sure they're disappointed right now. They're not going to have a happy flight back from Omaha, and it's understandable. You lost in the Final Four. You were that close. You were one set away from going to the national championship game, and it is disappointing, and you feel for them. But hopefully at some point over the next few days, the next week or two, they can kind of probably the next few days put that disappointment behind them and reflect on the fact that they had a great season. They really did, and they're one of the top programs in the University of Pittsburgh athletic department. So kudos to Dan Fisher, kudos to the Pitt volleyball team, and here's looking forward to next season, because I don't see any reason to think that program's going to drop off. I think it's a machine right now. It's a machine, a successful machine. All right, the news that came before the Pitt volleyball game, because that started really late. There wasn't really any news after that. I mean, I spent most of the Pitt volleyball game watching and like texting and DMing to get info for today's recruiting rundown. So keep an eye out for that, because there's going to be a lot of stuff in there about guys that we haven't talked much about, with a lot of new info. But before the volleyball game happened, before that match, there was some news on a guy that we have talked a lot about, and a guy that we've had info on, and it's Donovan McMillon. Safety, 4-star prospect from Peters Township, went to Florida. You see the headline right up there at the top. You already knew the news, and if you didn't know the news, you saw it there, and so you already know what we're getting at. He committed to Pitt on Thursday, and we've been sort of, I'm not going to say, we've been hinting at this all week. We've been saying it all week that Pitt's going to get Donovan McMillon. I don't think I've really pulled many punches. I probably said things like, I expect Pitt to land McMillon. Well, it happened. He formally announced on Thursday. I think he was at Pitt on Thursday and made his announcement on Thursday night. He's transferring in with, I believe, 3 years of eligibility, 3 years to play. And he comes in as a bigger safety, a guy with decent size. Maybe, probably, I have to see. I was just looking into how big he is. And I had it on my phone. Somebody was saying about this. we were talking about his size. Where was it? It was, like 6'2", 215, 6'1", 6'2", 210, 215. And he's really, at that size, if he's even right around that area, probably bigger than any safety Pat Narduzzi has had. I mean, I can't really think of another safety since Narduzzi got to Pitt who had that kind of size. We haven't seen those kinds of guys really play here. And so I think there's inevitably going to be questions about whether Donovan McMillon sticks at safety or ultimately moves to outside linebacker. And I think he could excel at either one. I think he's going to start off at safety, though. I don't expect Brandon Hill, quite frankly, or Eric Hallett to be back in 2023. Neither one of those guys has made an announcement, but I don't expect them to be at Pitt next season. I expect them both to go to the NFL. And so you're going to have openings at both safety positions. McMillon probably doesn't fit the field safety spot, which is more that free safety position, but I think he fits like a glove in the boundary safety spot as long as he can move well enough. And I think the Pitt coaches believe he can. That boundary safety position, Brandon Hill, I think, has done a really good job manning it for the last 2 years plus, 2 years plus a couple of games at the end of the 2020 season after Paris Ford took his, made his departure. But really, we've seen that position over the years be just a tackling machine, playing down in the box, attacking against the run. Jordan Whitehead used to pile up tackles there. Paris Ford piled up tackles. Brandon Hill has done a good job. I think Donovan McMillon can be a guy who gets a ton of tackles. Now, part of it is you need teams that run the ball. That's not always the case in the ACC. You don't always have a lot of run-heavy teams. And so it's going to be, you're not always going to get a lot of tackles for that boundary safety spot. But I do think it is an active physical position. And Donovan McMillon at his size, provided he can run, fits it really well. And, I just think the safety position is going to be really interesting next year. If Hallett and Hill are gone, as we expect, you're looking at new starters at both safety spots. I think, Javon McIntyre obviously had a huge game. Look, he comes on the screen perfectly just as we're talking about him. Had a big game at, Miami in the regular season finale. PJ O'Brien has probably gotten his name called more for special teams penalties this, at Pitt than he has for making plays on defense. But I think the coaching staff is very high on him and his potential at the field safety spot. I think Stephon Hall is another guy who could potentially step in and get some reps. I think he's more of the boundary safety, but he might be able to get some snaps at the field safety. Rashad Battle, though, is another one I think you could see at field safety. He has bounced back and forth between that safety spot and corner. And I think you could see him end up back at field safety and be a really good player there. And so you got all these options, and you add McMillon into the mix. And I think it really, I like how that safety spot now is coming together because I think you've got some really promising young players, and then you've got, this veteran. And McMillon didn't play a ton at Florida. We've looked at his stats and talked about him on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, and he hasn't had, it's not like he's played a ton, like I say, but he's played in a handful of games, and more than that, he's more than just the time he's spent on the field. He's been in a college football program, and I think there's value in that. Having a guy who's been in college for 2 years, where you don't know how guys are going to handle just the transition, not just to the game, but just transition to college life. Well, he's been in college for 2 years. He's made that transition. He's also had 2 years in a college strength and conditioning program. He's had 2 years of college football nutrition and all those things, and 2 years of studying college football offenses. Even if he doesn't have a ton of on-field experience, he's got a lot of experience in college football, and I think that's valuable. And you add him to the mix with a group of promising young players, and I think you get a pretty intriguing and, maybe even high-ceiling safety position. And so Pitt's second transfer in the 2022 offseason, heading into the 2023 season, is another former Whippeal star. He joins Phil Dracovic, the quarterback from Pine Richland, went to Notre Dame, went to Boston College. He's already committed, and now Donovan McMillon makes 2. And I think it's a good ad. I think it's a good ad for Pitt, and add, ADD, a good addition for Pitt? Is it a good ad for Pitt in terms of promoting Pitt to young recruits? I don't know. We'll see. I think it will be or can be if he has a big season. And I actually have high hopes for him. I think he's a really good player. Thought he was a really good player coming out of Peters Township. And I think he'll do well in Pitt's defense. So we'll see Donovan McMillon playing defense with Pitt next season. Chances are, and I don't think it's necessarily a surprise, it seems pretty likely that we're not going to be seeing SirVocea Dennis. The Senior Bowl announced yesterday that Dennis had accepted an invite to play in that game. That all but locks it up that his Pitt career is over. We'll see if he decides to play in the bowl game or not. I'm guessing not, but we'll see. That ultimately will be his decision. And SirVocea Dennis really leaves he leaves a legacy. I think he's going to be one of those sort of defining players of the Pat Narduzzi era for a lot of reasons. Number one is on-field performance. He had 233. I have his stats right in front of me. Over the course of 4 seasons, he had 233 tackles. And actually, you could say this is over the course of the last 3 seasons. He had 1 tackle as a freshman in 2019. In the last 3 seasons, he's had 232 tackles, 36 tackles for loss, 15 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. He's been an outstanding player for Pitt. One of the key players in the run to the ACC championship last year, one of the great plays of last season that didn't involve Jordan Addison or Kenny Pickett when he had the interception on a shovel pass against Clemson. And really, you could probably put it up there with some of the best plays you got out of Pickett and Addison. If you want to put together the highlight reel of 2021, you can't leave SirVocea Dennis intercepting that shovel pass and taking it back for a touchdown. You can't leave that one off the mix. But it's also about the history and the story, the context of his recruitment. Pitt lost a commitment from Kadri Jackson, the outside linebacker from Florida, who flipped to North Carolina late in the recruiting cycle, like early December, a week or 2 before signing day. He flips to North Carolina and leaves Pitt looking for another outside linebacker prospect. January, they happen upon SirVocea Dennis playing, a year of post-grad or prep school ball in New Jersey, native of Syracuse. They end up recruiting him. He's some random unknown 2-star guy. I call him up on the phone, and ask, man, first question I have to ask you is, how do you pronounce your name? He says, yeah, it's SirVocea. And it all sort of goes from there. But he's a guy who's totally overlooked in the recruiting process, totally overlooked in Pitt's recruiting class. And he ends up being, arguably the defensive MVP of the last 3 seasons combined. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. I guess 2020 you had a couple unanimous or consensus All-Americans in Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones. And those guys were pretty good. But I think if you look over the course of 3 seasons combined, I mean, even that year with Dennis and Jones, 2020, Dennis had 14 and a half, or not Dennis and Jones, Weaver and Jones. Dennis had 14 and a half tackles for loss and 4 sacks. So even then, he was still one of the best players on defense. Just an outstanding player, a great representative of Pitt. Kind of had this sort of intellectual look when he put on his glasses and talk in the press conferences. But then he get on the field, and he was a feisty one. I think he took a couple personal foul penalties, or at least 1 or 2 that I can think of, where you could tell it was coming because he was getting more and more worked up and getting in the face of some offensive linemen who were quite a bit bigger than him. So, good luck to SirVocea Dennis. Again, a great representative of the program, a great player. And I hope he has a great career in the NFL. I'll be interested to see how he does. I don't know if that inside linebacker position is as prioritized as maybe it once was in the league. He is a little bit undersized. I'm not sure how much bigger he can really get. He might be able to get a little bit faster with training and that kind of thing. My guess is he'll get drafted probably late, or go undrafted, something like that. But he'll catch on with the team. He'll play special teams, and I'm guessing he'll eventually work himself into a defensive rotation. I hope that's what happens, because it would be great to see him. Great to see him have that kind of success. Always liked SirVocea Dennis. So kudos to you, sir, and good luck. Calijah Kancey the other news, I think this came out on Thursday. My days all run together. This might have been Wednesday. I don't know. Unanimous All-American, 15th unanimous All-American in Pitt history. I don't know what else you could say about that. I mean, he's truly one of the great players, certainly the 21st century. And for a school that has, arguably the greatest defensive tackle in NFL history among its alums, Calijah Kancey got himself pretty close to that level, at least in terms of college play, with how he played this season. And, just an outstanding player. And just such a dominant, impactful playmaker at defensive tackle. A guy who is way too small to make the kind of impact that he makes. It's sort of surprising how much impact he makes for how small. I mean, he's smaller than Aaron Donald. He's smaller than Jalen Twyman was. He's not a big guy, and yet he is just unblockable. Literally unblockable. There were a lot of teams this year, a lot of teams last year that just had no answer for Calijah Kancey. And, it's great to see him get the recognition that he deserves when it comes to, the national awards. I think he got kind of snubbed on some of the national awards. So to get the unanimous All-American, that's pretty good. That's in some respects that might be as good as getting one of the major national awards. Because there aren't very many unanimous All-Americans each year. Calijah Kancey's on that list. All right, final thing, the official visit weekend. The final official visit weekend before signing day. Signing day is next Wednesday. It's coming very fast. It's coming very fast for me. And I'm sure it's probably coming very fast for you as well. Pitt coaches probably can't wait till it's here because that'll mean they'll get their guys all locked up. But first, they're going to have this final official visit weekend. And this is going to be an interesting one. I'm talking about this now on Friday morning. I would not be surprised if by Friday afternoon, we have more names that we add to this list, more guys we're going to talk about. Right now, we've got 3 high school kids confirmed as official visits for the weekend. We're looking at Cruz Brookins, the defensive back from Steel Valley, Maverick Gracio, apologize if I mispronounced his name, defensive end from Florida, and Israel Polk, a wide receiver from the state of California, just recently. And 2 of these guys, actually all 3 of these guys, are relatively recent offers. Brookins got his offer from Pitt in late November. Gracio was, as he put it, re-offered by Pitt in early December. And Polk just got his offer from Pitt yesterday. He kind of showed up on Pitt's radar a couple days ago. Kind of got put there, or Pitt sort of got hipped to Israel Polk by some people around Ty Diefenbach, the quarterback commitment in the 2023 recruiting class, Pitt's quarterback commitment in the 2023 recruiting class. And they took a look at him and they liked what they saw. And they decided to pull the trigger on an offer. Now he's coming in for an official visit this weekend. Brookins is a guy who was committed. Actually, Brookins and Gracio were both committed to Kent State at different points in their process. They both backed off of those commitments. Pitt's offers coincided to some extent. Also, Kent State's head coach leaving to be the offensive coordinator at Colorado coincided to some extent. But I think Brookins and Gracio both were always highly interested in Pitt. And now they have the opportunity to actually go there. So this should be a weekend that I would think produces some news because we're so close to signing day. There's a chance that some guys might decide they want to commit, but they'll hold off and wait until signing day and announce it then. We'll see how they want to play. But I think this weekend will produce some commitments, plural, for Pitt. We'll keep an eye on it as we always do on Panther-Lair.com. And then we'll also be watching to see what transfers visit. Now, for that, and we're going to have some good info on Panther-Lair.com this morning about that and throughout the day about that. So if you want to get the latest info on the transfers, where Pitt stands with all its targets in the transfer portal, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com is the place to go to check it out. Because there's going to be some interesting guys on campus this weekend. There's some interesting guys we're watching to see if they show up on campus this weekend. So make sure you check it out. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's going to be an interesting weekend. It's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting 2 weeks. It's been an interesting 5 months. It's it's just been interesting for a while. But certainly the last couple of weeks of recruiting have been a lot of fun to cover. Hopefully you've enjoyed following along. Sometimes it's been good news. Sometimes it's been bad news. We try to balance it out the best we can, at least in the way we present it. But the news is the news. So we keep it keeps happening, and we keep writing about it and talking about it. We write about it on Panther-Lair.com, and we talk about it right here on the Morning Pitt on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So thanks so much for tuning in today. Thanks for tuning in all week. It's been a great week for viewership here on the Morning Pitt. It's been fun to have everybody who joins in and checks us out. So like this video and subscribe. Tell your friends to check out the Morning Pitt if they're Pitt fans. This is the way they should get their morning started as well. It's the Morning Pitt right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So I hope you had a good week. I hope you're all ready for the holidays. They are right around the corner. So use this weekend to take care of some business there. Pitt has a basketball game tomorrow against North Florida, so you've got that to look forward to as well. And then by the time we get to Monday, it'll really be the countdown, 48 hours and counting until signing day on Wednesday. So a lot going on, a lot coming up. You know where you need to be. It's Panther-Lair.com. And our YouTube channel right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So I hope you did have a good week. I hope you have a great weekend. And we will talk to you again Monday morning for the Morning Pitt right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.